I think the only reason Kay called Mia a stripper was because she called her man a drug dealer. Who knows what's true? Well, I mean, it is true that Mia was a stripper, right? She was a stripper? Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know why.
So, the first 30 minutes of this episode, I almost hate to say it because it has some personal stuff in it, but it really gave feels. But the last half made up. So I'm here. We're here. We are here to talk about the newest episode of the Real Housewives of Potomac, and yeah. So for starters, we are coming in on the back end of this whole thing that was happening with Mia and Karen at the table for Wendy's dinner that was go around the circle and talk about Mia. So I don't really know what to call it. But we're coming up off of this tea that, Karen had butt dialed Mia and her friend Joy. And in a weird way, obviously Karen denies it. I was wondering how she was going to spin it. And it really didn't have much of a spin. I don't know if I would give it that word. It more so turned into the fact that, she was getting in the car to drive and she was intoxicated. And then I guess what she's saying is she pulled over and she called a driver. And then Mia says in her confessional that, Karen didn't actually go home. When she called her the next day, Karen was on her way home. So I'm confused on what the tea is supposed to be. Is the tea that Karen was going to see a man or was with a man? Is the tea that Karen was driving drunk? Is all the above? It was just just all over the place for me. It definitely didn't help that we find out that this was 3 years ago, because then I really just don't care. I'm gonna get into this a little bit later in the episode, but I just feel like if we were going to, I already knew this was gonna fall flat, and it's just my personal opinion. I get that the girls want to go after Karen. It's been something that they've been trying to do, and I'm not saying this as a Karen bias. I love Karen, but if they want to go after Karen, I'll be happy to watch it. It's good television, but I just feel like they don't have the tools. I don't feel like they've ever really had the tools. And every time they bring up something with Karen, it just feels very stale. And then they reach for that low hanging fruit and they say, well, Karen's deflecting. And it almost feels like a Donald Trump type of thing, right? Like when Donald Trump loses the election like he did last time. And he's like, well, they set it up, blah, blah, blah. It just feels like every time they go after Karen and it falls flat, they're like, well, she deflected. So, and it's just like, and Karen gives them like, okay, that was cute, y'all. Like, I feel like that's what makes it worse. Like Karen's clocking it in real time. She's like, this isn't working. It was cute, but it's not going to take away from lying as Jacqueline. Because Mia takes on this thing, and I don't know if she thinks it's supposed to make her look like a good friend after she dragged Jacqueline through the mud for 2 seasons. But she's like, you called my friend a liar, so I'm bringing it up now to vindicate my friend. And it didn't do that. It more so shows how Jacqueline can't fight her own battles, and it became more apparent as the episode went on. But we'll chat. And Jacqueline's in this. You can tell that Jacqueline is losing the battle because now it's points where she wants to act messy and be all snarky and stuff like Mia, but then when she gets kind of like a palm to the forehead, she starts crying and she's like, well, I don't understand what the issue is. I didn't do anything. So she's in her confessional saying, well, I was just giving my opinion. It was my opinion that Karen sounded drunk when she called me. And I don't know why she's so upset with me giving my opinion. And it's like, girl, y'all talk so much about Karen being a liar. Stand 10 toes down, girl, and that she was trying to be messy and say that Karen called you drunk. Because you were smirking when you said it on that first episode. And now you acting like, oh, I was just saying it was my opinion that she sounded drunk. That's not how it happened. And it's my honest opinion that in this moment she just sounded really dumb. And as they're having this conversation, I'm like, okay, are we back to the narrative of Karen was with another man? Because Mia sneaks it in and she's like, well, how is Ray doing with this whole situation? Like, how are you and Ray? And Karen's like, we're going through it. Like, we've been going through it before this, but he's riding for me. So, it really is what it is. And they show that same clip 5,000 seasons ago where Ray was saying, he didn't know if he was in love with Karen, which I thought was interesting then. I still think that it's interesting now, but I'm waiting for the dots to connect. I just don't agree with showing flashbacks for the sake of showing flashbacks or for like a wow factor. Like, are we going to turn the corner on it? Is something going to happen as a result? And I kind of like the through line of this story with like Stacey this season, but also this episode, because she's trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Like every time we get in this group, y'all are having some very weird tea spilled, and she feels like the target is at Karen every 5 minutes, as she said, and she's telling Karen she's proud of her. So it's interesting. This episode, I'll say they did a really good job of showing like her being like, girl, like why are y'all coming at Karen, and then at the end kind of having questions for Karen. So I think that's a fun dynamic change and something fun to add to the story, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I could guess, but I'm interested to see. And we get this theme this episode as well of seeing the ladies go back to their corners. And I'm hoping the producers break this up quite a bit. I can understand having your sides, but I think it's going to get old seeing Mia, Jacqueline, and Ashley kind of come together in their corner and jab at Karen, and then seeing Karen with like, Wendy and the other ladies. And, I far more enjoy seeing Karen with the other ladies because it's just more fun. But I also think because it's the group. Like, I mean, it's kind of like the majority of the group, whereas you have these three weirdos kind of like trying to make a thing at Karen, and it kind of gets old. I feel like their mission is lost on me, and I'll get into that a little bit later as well. We do get this scene where and I'm just not invested in this, sorry. Stacy's on the phone with TJ and he calls her princess, and I think that that's an interesting pet name for a grown woman. But, they're having a conversation, and also interestingly enough, she says there's been a lot of questions about you, and he's like, well, I want you to lean in, like, go ahead and share, like, that's what you're there for. And it sounded like this when they were in the gym, in my opinion. It feels like TJ's coming from a standpoint of, this is your opportunity, sister, like, you're on TV, you're on The Real Housewives, this is what this experience is for, so, lean in, like, have the conversations with them. But she's not wanting to, I guess, is what I'm pulling from it. I'm not getting a lot, so I'm having to color in the lines, but I feel like she just doesn't want to because of the thing with her marriage. I guess that's the storyline. I'm just not 1,000% sure. But they do that, and he gets to meet Wendy and Jassy on FaceTime. And I mean, their conversation, I thought it was interesting. Just like I thought it was the same type of interesting that it was when they were in the gym. So I just can't really get into it. But he does give her I love you and I miss you. So, okay. We do find out that the ladies stayed up till midnight for Wendy's birthday. Karen has some fun shade of like, well, we're not really doing anything. We're just sitting here. And I guess I can appreciate them throwing that comedic relief in, because we have been sitting here watching this episode for almost 30 minutes now, and nothing has really transpired. And we've been talking about Wendy's birthday for 3 episodes, and while it has been funny, now it's actually here, and we're not really getting anything to go with it, so okay. But I think it was nice to hear Wendy share her perspective in a talk she had with her mom, where it's like, if you're, and obviously I'm paraphrasing, but if you're fearful or whatever, or having negative thoughts about turning 40 or maybe any age, just because you feel like you haven't accomplished anything. So she's having a conversation about how she realized she's accomplished so much by 40. And I think that is a good thought to have when you go into birthdays. I do it myself, so great, but I don't really need to watch that on TV. Even if I just didn't, I think this storyline is so stupid, if I'm going to be honest with y'all. We get Mia talking and having a conversation with Jacqueline, and she basically says she was texting with Gordon, and Gordon was, I don't know, going off and saying that he feels used. We don't get much context to that, but I would assume that Gordon feels, I'm assuming, this is a loose assumption because I don't know, but I would assume that he feels used for the sake of this television show. He also, I guess he was saying he feels used because Mia just keeps him around because it makes it easier for her. And I don't attribute, obviously they have a conversation about like caregiving for the kids and financial. I'm not really attributing it to that. I don't personally believe that it's that, but we'll never know. Mia does say, basically she's talking to the experts about this, and the number one thing when it comes to people with manic episodes is to be supportive. I could have guessed that, and I didn't go to school for that. But Mia takes that as, okay, well, I'm supporting him, so that's why I keep him around. And that just sounds really dumb to me. And, Jacqueline says what I think the audience is thinking, like, it is weird to have, Gordon around with ink. Like, that is obviously an interesting situation, especially when he still has feelings for you. We more so want to talk about the fact that you have these 2 men around your children and you're going through this paternity thing. But this is a good start. And lastly, on the the first half of the episode that really just was not giving much, I was wondering why Giselle kept calling it a cap and gown ceremony. Is that what it's called? like as opposed to a graduation, or are those two different things? I'm not trying to be a mess. I'm really just genuinely confused. But nothing negative. Like, sure, those are her daughters. That's part of the story. That's great. But I will have to say, now that they are the last two to graduate, I hope that Giselle can give us something different in terms of story.
I'm here as a mother.
So now we're getting what we've all just been waiting for, I guess. And they're sitting at breakfast, and well, first Giselle calls Wendy for her birthday, which I thought was nice, but Giselle's on her way back, so cool. And as a result of this call, sitting across the table from each other, Jacqueline and Mia start saying like, "Oh, it's good to move forward and not hold grudges. You know, if you hold grudges, it makes you look bitter." And they're basically repeating what each other is saying. And Stacey's like, "Are y'all talking about Karen?" And Ashley's like, "Well, Jacqueline, are you talking about Karen?" And she's like, "Well, no." And I'm like, again, like, girl, stand 10 toes down in it. Like, and you can clearly see, like, she kicked it off. But Mia joined in. Nobody asked Mia, like, "Hey, girl, who are you talking about?" They asked Jacqueline. Because it's like, girl, get in the field. Like, you acting like you want to, "Oh, I want to stand away from Mia, and I don't want to be Mia's shadow, and I'm not her sidekick. I'm the whole meal. I'm the whole package." But then, like, they ask you, "Are you being messy?" And you're deflecting, as you say Karen does. You're more so lying, like your best friend Mia. So Kiana's like, girl. Like, I just feel like we need to give Karen a break today. Like, she's like, "Mia, let me address Mia, since that's the one that's going to, admit that she's being messy." She's like, "Girl, I don't understand why you gave us that 3-year throwback. Like, I thought that was pretty low." And she's like, "Honestly, Karen, I think you handled yourself well, because like, that was a bit too much. Like, let's give the girl a break." And I'm liking that we have not only new women here with their own personalities, own opinions, but they do stand up and they say things, and I'm appreciating that. And I think that you need that against people like Mia, because I think Mia is just looking at mess, and there's not a ton of like substance and reason that comes with Mia. And so when you get somebody like Kiana who's like, "Girl, what was the reason?" Like, and people like Stacey, like, "What was the reason?" And people like Jazzy, like, "What was the reason?" It helps, because I feel like the only people that we had doing that in the past was like a Candace and a Wendy, right? And they look like the anomalies in the group because everybody was always against them. Whereas now I think we have a majority of ladies who are like, "What was the reason?" And I'm not saying eliminate the mess. You need that ensemble cast. We need everybody to play their role, and Mia plays the clown very well. But it is more so nice in 2024 to be watching a TV show that's just not about mess and silliness. Like, we do need some type of a reason at the end of the day. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that, like, Mia's like, "Girl, whatever. Like, I'm sure Karen was proud of me. Like, I made it through boot camp." I guess she's talking about Housewives boot camp, but she's like, "I got my flu. Like, you're the one that's working for yours." Talking to Kiana, it's like, Kiana's like, "Girl, I don't need no flu." And I think that that's obvious. Like, I think if we've thought about it enough, like, when we liked Kiana last season, we did. But it was very random to hear that she had gotten a flu, especially this soon. And I don't feel like that's not because she didn't deserve one. I think she's doing an excellent job, but it didn't feel like that's something that she was going for. It never did. So I think it's authentic that she's saying, "Girl, I didn't need a flu." Like, girl, you obviously need the flu, because this whole love triangle thing you have going on is very interesting. So it's cute to see that Kiana is clocking in real time. Girl, this is all storyline for you. Clearly, you're the one that needs the flu. And Mia, of course, no substance. Well, she's like, "Well, girl, what about your drug dealing boyfriend?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know how we got here, but I guess let's talk about it." And Kiana's like, "Girl, I don't have a drug dealing boyfriend. Like, the one that I'm dating now is," I forgot what she said he does, but she told us before this episode. I think it would be more tea if we hadn't met the man and heard what he did, but we already know what Greg be doing. That's his name, right, Greg? So this for me fell flat immediately. And of course, leave it to Ashley. She tries just a little bit to keep her job, I guess. And she's sitting at the end of the table, just like she'll be sitting at the end of the couch at the reunion. And she says, "Well, that rumor was around. Like, that rumor was around." I wish they would have got on her ass. I don't understand. Let's talk about the rumors then, girl. Like, you still with Michael, right? Because let's talk about the fact that they were at that table talking about skydiving. And she brings up the story with skydiving with Michael, and she's all kikis and cackles and giggles. If this is the man that you're divorcing, you're not finna kiki and cackle and giggle over no story where y'all went skydiving and then had sex after. You're such a weirdo. Like, girl, y'all not even getting divorced. Please, go. And so they get into this whole conversation about just hypocrisy at the end of the day. They start talking about the streets. Mia's trying to say Kiana, knows about the streets because she dated a guy that sold drugs, I guess. And Mia's like, I worked hard for what I had. I didn't have to go to the streets. But Kiana's like, but girl, you were a stripper. And Mia even said at the table she was a stripper. So she's like, girl, you are the streets. Like, what are you talking about? So I was about to get carried away. First of all, I don't understand what Kiana's man, like what he does for a living, has to do with her, right? I will say I don't necessarily want to date anybody that sells drugs, and I think that will have a reflection on the person that is dating them, like obviously. But to kind of take that reach and say, well, Kiana was going to the streets to get what she needed, I don't know that I agree with that, and I don't know why it matters if this is not a man she's dating now. So it falls flat. As far as a stripper goes, I've never been to a strip club. Not that I'm against it, I've just never been to one. I don't really have any adverse opinions as it pertains to strippers. Would I say that they're getting their money from the streets? I wouldn't completely disagree with it. Then Mia jumps completely out the window and she's like, well, girl, you know all about the street stitches. Obviously, referencing the issue that happened with Kiana last season. And as far as Housewives goes and the jab of it all, I guess I can give it to Mia. And at this moment, I am thinking like, damn, I feel some type of way because Kiana did broach this conversation and say Mia was low, and Mia kind of got Kiana at that moment. This is Housewives talk. So I'm like, damn, but I am partial to Kiana. And I do think that she redeemed herself. But before we get there, Jacqueline has to jump back in. This is like a scene of like the girls are really trying to get their own, and I can appreciate that. So Jacqueline jumps in and she's like, well, let's not harp on people's past. And I appreciate Wendy. And she's like, girl, what is the hypocrisy of it all? Like, Mia is the one that started this, and she brought up one of Kiana's ex-boyfriends. What are you talking about? And Jacqueline's like, oh, I thought that she initiated it. Like, you sitting right next to her, you can't hear. But they decide to move on, right? Like, they're like, okay, let's move on. Let's get up out of this, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. But then Ashley being Ashley, she's like, well, can I ask a question, Kay? Like, do you have a scar from that instance? And Kay automatically gets upset. And, it's because of what she said on camera. Like, girl, you of all people should not be asking me about that situation. And you're obviously doing it to be messy. Even though Ashley's like, well, she has a skincare line. I didn't see a scar. And I wanted to ask, like, girl, don't lie. So she gets upset. She storms off. And again, I'm still thinking, like, damn, Kay, like, you really kicked this off. And they really kind of got you, girl. Like, they really kind of got you out your element. Not the reads. I don't think they was reading my girl. Let's be clear. But they did get her out of her element. And, that's a big thing for Kay. That would be a big thing for anybody on TV. So I'm like, damn. But, Wendy goes to check on her. She has her moment. I think it's fine to have your moment away from the group. And while she's gone, Jassy jumps in there. She's like, girl, do you wear glasses, Ashley? Like, if you're looking at her and you're literally sitting 2 people down from her, if that, you'd be able to see that there's a scar on her head. Like, you're being a mess. But Kiana comes back to the table. Stacey's like, listen, y'all, we had a good positive moment last night. We all heard about Mia at Wendy's birthday party. So let's just continue in that energy of being positive. And Kay, redeeming herself, is like, girl, look, I am having a good time. I'm going to continue to have a good time. But Ashley, as it pertains to you, personal conversations like that, they're off limits for us. Don't ask me shit. And this is about the 14th person on this cast that's done with this with Ashley. Like, don't talk to me. Leave me alone. Stop talking to me. So, I don't know why she had the job. But anywho. And even still, Jacqueline's like, well, I don't even know how it came up. And Kiana's like, girl, are you okay? And I think that that's a valid question. They're going to move on again. Part 2. But Karen ain't done. She's like, girl, well, I'm going to be messy. I'm going to be messy because Jacqueline, aren't you still trying to get back with the dude that you call PP? Like your baby daddy, ex-husband, whatever the hell he's supposed to be. And she's like, stuttering, glitching. And Karen's like, And when she finally gets out, like, yeah, we are working on things. She's like, okay, is this after his 25 convictions that you chose to stand by him? And Wendy's like, well, hold on, girl. Like, more Wendy, hypocrisy police. Last episode, comedy relief. This episode, hypocrisy police. I love it. And Jacqueline starts trying to explain vaguely that this was internal, but I guess he's a police officer and it was internal within the police department, and he did end up losing his job. But then she kind of spins it and she's like, well, it was a racist police department. And I'm like, But he does have a new job at another police department, so Okay. But while they're having, I don't know if they're having this conversation in parts, in their head at least. Because Ashley jumps in and she's like, well, everybody has a past. And Wendy, again, and even Stacy, they're like, oh, now everybody has a past. Everybody has a past.
Everybody has a past.
Oh, now everybody has a past. Now everybody has a past. Now everybody has a past.
And I'm just like, the fact, listen, hypocrisy in one season is one thing. Hypocrisy across 2 episodes is one thing. Hypocrisy across 4 episodes is one thing. But hypocrisy in the same conversation and setting and seat assignments, that's insane. Now, Karen has got Jacqueline. Karen has Jacqueline by the jugular this entire season. Literally her edges are in Karen's hands. She is wearing Jacqueline thin every time she has a chance. And you can tell because, like I said, Mia keeps trying to jump in and defend Jacqueline. Jacqueline even got up from the table and went across to sit next to Mia. You know how weird and weak that looked? And as she's doing it, she's like, Karen, I said one thing to you, and you took it to a whole nother different level. No, girl, as Karen said, you didn't say anything to me. You went around the group, and you perpetuated this rumor that I was drunk when I called you. And now you can't really take what you dished out, honey. And Karen says exactly what she said about Giselle. I'm respected in this group, baby. You went around and told everybody, they came back and they told me. Now I'm clocking your tea. And honestly, the funniest part of the night was hearing Karen call Jacqueline a dingbat. Like, you know, when older black folks, especially when they pull those insults out their back pocket, and you like, damn, because those are the deep cutting ones. If a grown person of respect called me a dingbat, I know I'm messing up. And Ashley still, I didn't even hear what she had said this time, y'all, but she tried to jump in defending her side of the team again. And Wendy's like, girl, shut your ass up. And I'm just like, this is what we need each season. Like, I don't know why still y'all haven't got on her ass like y'all should. I'm waiting for it. I don't know what the issue is. But yes, Ashley, shut your ass up. You don't be talking about nothing. So again, ding, 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 ding. They go back to their corners. And, you know, the majority of the group is outside while Jacqueline and Mia and Ashley are, like, tucked away in a room. And they're, you know, whispering about Karen not taking accountability. And Mia brings up her counts. And they're just like, I don't know why she doesn't just say she's driving drunk. I don't know what we are to gain from that. We know she was driving drunk. So I don't know. Even if I'm trying to put myself in a situation where I'm in the group and I'm maybe adverse to Karen, or I'm sick of Karen deflecting, or I feel like Karen gets away with everything, I'm trying to put myself in that headspace and wondering if I'm really going to need Karen to come to the group to say, hey, I was driving drunk. I just don't know where that takes them. I don't know why they want that so badly. I don't. Because it's not like she's saying she wasn't driving drunk. I understand she's saying I can't talk about it. It's a legal thing and that's confusing. I've said it every episode that I've reviewed. I don't understand it either. I don't know what she's waiting to get adjudicated. I don't know what she's waiting for the court to say. I think it's obvious that she was driving drunk. So is that confusing? Yes. But I don't know what I need from her. I mean, I think we have a conversation about it and say, Karen, you was driving drunk. You shouldn't have did that. Like, and it's over with. The world already knows she was driving drunk. I feel like it's over with. And it's not my opinion that Karen hasn't taken accountability for it, because I guess I don't understand. Well, I guess that's a better question to pose. What accountability are we seeking from Karen? So as they're doing that, Stacey comes in the group and she's like, why do y'all have such a hard on that group? Why do y'all have such a hard on for Karen? And Mia's like, girl, like, you're defending this. And she shows her the 8 counts. And Stacey's like, well, I didn't really know all of that. But she's like, but there's still a difference. They kind of chopped it. We didn't hear it as much. So I think that there was some TV magic in there. But it sounds like she was saying, well, there's a difference. Like, are y'all coming to her with concern, or are y'all trying to tear her down? And Mia's like, no, like, we're concerned. We think that she should go to rehab. And at that point, Stacey's like, okay, I don't know how I feel about this. So she runs out and immediately she addresses Karen, which I thought was great television. And at this moment, Karen is like, okay, well, I understand that those are just allegations. And at that point, I'm like, in my opinion, it's not alleged. Girl, you was driving drunk. But still, even if I heard that, as egregious as that is, and as that took me aback, I'm not going to be like, Karen doesn't take accountability. Like, I don't I don't know. I don't know. But Stacey says, girl, well, it's bigger than that. Like, they brought up rehab. And she says something that we didn't actually hear. But she says basically that the ladies told her that Karen had agreed that she needed to go to rehab for her issue. And so that's the thing. So if that's the story, and I said this already, y'all. If the story is that Karen has a drinking problem and we're discussing rehab, right? Like, there was a part in an older season, right, where somebody alluded to Karen having gone to rehab or a program or something, right? Am I misremembering? Is that a word? But yeah, if that's the story, Karen has a drinking problem, and we want her to say that. I want the rhetoric and the storyline to go there. We've had enough episodes. Please don't waste the rest of this season. Please don't waste no more of our time saying blanketed statements like Karen's not taking accountability for her DUI. What does that mean? If Karen has a drinking problem and there was a discussion of rehab and Karen agreed to go to rehab and Karen needs to go to rehab and Karen has a drinking problem, let's talk about that because there is substance there, right? If somebody has a problem, then there's something below that and there's a reason for that and then there's something we need to, like, there's a story there. Karen drove drunk. Karen got arrested. We want Karen to take accountability. How? It's accounted for. We know. Where's the story? And then we get a to be continued. And I mean, I am watching a lot of Housewives shows this go round right now. But I'm just like, how many of these are we going to get? How many times are we going to be continued? Obviously, it's going to be continued because this is the season. So we know that we're going to talk about it more in the next episode. So I hope that they don't think that that's like great production and it makes us like, because it's like, okay. Like, I just don't like any of the episodes like that. But, 30 minutes of a good episode. Less than that, because you got to count in the commercials. So, maybe about 20 minutes of a good episode. But I enjoyed it. It took me somewhere, did what it had to do. So, we will see what Karen has to say when it's continued.